He is too old.
He is the chosen one. You must see it.
Clouded this boy's future is.
I will train him then. I take Anakin as my Padawan learner.
Our story begins during the climax of the Phantom Menace. Little Anakin is in a Naboo starfighter, spinning and carrying the rest of the pilots, while the Gungans are trying their best to do war on the plains of Naboo against the Trade Federation droid army. Our attention, however, is focused on that of Naboo's capital of Theed, where Obi-Wan and Qui Gon are currently in a duel of the fates between that of Darth Maul. Events would play similar to that of the movie. Blows would be shared back and forth between the Jedi and the Sith Lord. Eventually, Obi-Wan would be knocked off a platform like he was in the movie, leaving Qui-Gon alone against the sinister Darth Maul. Eventually, Qui-Gon, with his aggressive lightsaber style of Ataru, would force Maul back from the larger Theed power room into that of the reactor room. Obi-Wan would catch up from being knocked down from the platform earlier, but laser shields would separate him yet from his master. However, compared to that of the movie, when the shields would turn off again in that sequential order, Obi-Wan would utilize force speed to quickly close the distance between his master and Maul, just reaching the back reactor room before the laser shields closed behind him. Now, the Jedi Master and Apprentice had Maul on the ropes, with their 2-to-1 advantage and being in a smaller room, now making it harder for Maul to utilize his double-bladed lightsaber to his full potential and his acrobatic movements and fighting style. Things were looking up for the light side team. Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon worked together and Maul was getting backed to a corner. Eventually, Maul would get desperate and try to make a move for the offensive, attempting to take the weaker Jedi Apprentice out of the fight in a swift fashion. He made a swift slash with the intent to kill Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan mostly managed to dodge Maul's swift attack, but his saber arm was cut by Maul's blade, severing it off. However, in this swift offensive motion, it left Maul's defenses wide open. With the last of Qui-Gon's energy, he delivered a quick but deadly thrust to Darth Maul, the instantaneous moment after he dismembered Obi-Wan. Maul lay defeated in the Theed power core room, with both Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan making it out alive. Not quite unscathed, though. They rushed out of the power room to get Obi-Wan's arm medical attention immediately. With Anakin Skywalker blowing up the main control ship for the droids and Darth Maul defeated, the Battle of Naboo was over, with the Trade Federation defeated, and the Dark Lord of the Sith now missing an apprentice. Following the Battle of Theed, our story resumes days after this epic duel of the fates, back on Coruscant at the Jedi Temple. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were given some time to rest and heal up after their battle. In the meantime, Obi-Wan had a prosthetic metallic arm created for him, for the hand that was severed by the Dark Lord. Young Anakin Skywalker hung around with the pair, as he had still no place at the Jedi Temple. After necessary time of rest and repair, the Jedi Duo and Force Anomaly were once again called upon by the Jedi Council, who wanted a detailed report of the events that occurred on Naboo, among other important matters to discuss. Qui-Gon explained most of what took place, about how they took back the capital Theed and the Gungans helped in the battle, but the main focus and area for concern was that of the unknown Force user and the duel that left Obi-Wan critically injured. Qui-Gon was very adamant to the council, saying that it had to be a Sith, as without Obi-Wan's help, he would have not been able to defeat the Force user on his own. The Sith had returned, along with the obvious giveaways of more dark side tendencies in Maul's lightsaber fighting styles. There was much confusion and thought around the council, and similar to that of the movie, a statement was made.
There's no doubt the mysterious warrior was a Sith.
Always two there are. No more, no less. A master and an apprentice.
But which was destroyed, the master or the apprentice?
The Jedi Council advised caution to the rest of the members and decided it would be best to keep it between the council members, to not spread fear of the Sith's return. But they knew now they would have to keep an eye out for a Sith Lord lurking menacingly somewhere in the galaxy. But where could he be hiding? The next matter of discussion was that of the fate of young Anakin Skywalker. The council was still under the opinion that Anakin was too old to be trained as a Jedi, and that Qui-Gon already had an apprentice, but Qui-Gon would not have it. Obi-Wan should already be a Jedi Knight. What other Jedi Padawan has fought, let alone survived, a duel between a Sith Lord, Trials or not, Obi-Wan is more than ready than any Padawan has ever been to be a knight. In some ways, he's wiser than myself. I've nothing left to teach him, and am ready to take on another apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. He's too powerful in the Force to not be trained as a Jedi. You must see this. Without his help on Naboo, the battle against the droids would have been lost. You must see that the boy is the chosen one. Jedi Master Windu asked for them to step out of the Jedi Council chambers so that the members could discuss amongst themselves. After what felt like an eternity, the three of them are called back into the chambers with a decision seemingly made. Yoda proclaimed, "Granted the right to participate in the Jedi trials, Obi-Wan will be. Train the boy, you will." A smile went across Anakin's face as he turned to Qui-Gon to see him smiling back. Obi-Wan also looked pleased with the decision. "However," Mace Windu interrupted, "the boy will be your responsibility, Qui-Gon. Boy has not been trained at his age for centuries. Take care in training young Skywalker." Qui-Gon nodded, and the trio made their way out of the chambers. Arrangements were made for Obi-Wan's trials days after this meeting, where he easily passed and was granted the rank of Jedi Knight. Qui-Gon congratulated him, but advised him to keep trusting in the Force. Qui-Gon would go on to take Anakin Skywalker as his new Jedi apprentice, teaching him in the ways of the Force. Qui-Gon would especially focus on Anakin to be mindful of the living Force, and to just focus more on the subtleties of the Force itself, more than that of a standard Jedi Master. Qui-Gon liked when Anakin had questions that may have deemed inappropriate or out of line by other Jedi, as he believed having a greater understanding of the Force at large, and just the galaxies in general, was more important to be a good Jedi. Knowledge was power. Anakin was a fast learner, and Qui-Gon taught him well. Years would pass, and Anakin would become very powerful and wise for a Jedi apprentice, under the watchful eye of Qui Gon Jinn as his master. Our story continues now very similar to that of the Attack of the Clones film, with Padme Amidala being targeted by Jango Fett and other assassins. Qui-Gon and Anakin this time would be assigned to guard Padme, and with Qui-Gon's powerful Force meditation, they were able to prevent the attempt on Padme's life by that of Zam Wesell. But similarly, were not able to find the true identity of the ones behind it. Only a small clue of a Kaminoan saber dart was left behind. Similar to the films, Anakin would be made Padme's Jedi protector, and they would retreat to Naboo. Events would play out almost identically, with the two of them growing close together. Anakin gets Force visions of his mom dying, and this time, compared to that of the movie, he immediately acts on tracking her down. The pair head to Tatooine and look to track down Shmi Skywalker. This time, as Anakin was even more rebellious of the Jedi Order due to his training with Qui-Gon, they actually made it in time and save Anakin's mother from the Sand People. He does have to kill some of the Sand People in the troop that took her, but just enough for him to escape with his mother. With catching up with his mother and knowing she was back in safer hands with her husband, Anakin was at ease, and him and Padme returned to Naboo. A key difference here is Anakin does not lean to the dark side in this event with his mother, as he gets there in time to save her. At the same time that was going on, Qui-Gon was dealing with a disgruntled Jedi Master, his old master, Dooku. You see, in this timeline, with Qui-Gon still alive, Dooku never fully turns away from the Jedi. Though Dooku did have a discussion with Darth Sidious, but he never agreed on his thoughts on fully crushing the Republic. With Qui-Gon still alive, there was never that key moment that fully turned Dooku away. Qui-Gon and Dooku were discussing the growing concerns across the galaxy, with systems starting to leave the Republic. Rumors of a potential war were starting to spread. Dooku even mentioned the idea to Qui-Gon of leaving the Jedi Order together and asking if he would come with him to help stop the corruption of the galaxy and the Republic. Qui-Gon did agree that the Jedi were starting to lose their way, but they needed to wait for the Force to guide their decisions. He had faith in his apprentice, and the Chosen One as well, to bring balance. Qui-Gon simply advised patience to his old master Dooku, and to trust in the Force for now. The clue of the Kaminoan saber dart was assigned to be investigated to none other than that of the now Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi and his young apprentice, Ahsoka Tano. They made their way to the planet of Kamino, which in this world was a bit easier to find, as Dooku never went along to delete the coordinates from the Jedi Archive. On Kamino, they would discover that a clone army was being made for the Republic, to the Jedi's surprise. You see, even without Dooku, did you really expect the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Sidious, to not have a backup plan? Dooku and Qui Gon Jinn were not the only Jedi that didn't exactly follow the rules or were fully content with the Jedi. Dooku's close friend, Sifo Dyas, had grown discontent with the Jedi's actions over the years. And actually, back in the year 52 BBY, before the Phantom Menace, Sifo Dyas, Dooku, Qui-Gon, and others were already talking in secret on the planet of Serrano, discussing their concerns for the Republic. It was here, unbeknownst to the Jedi, Hago Damask of Damask Holdings, who in reality was Darth Plagueis, Dark Lord of the Sith at the time, suggested to Sifo Dyas that a clone army should be created for the protection of the Republic. Jumping back to our current story, Palpatine, having a harder time to turn Dooku, had already shifted his focus on Jedi Master Sifo Dyas and turned him successfully. He had convinced him that the Republic was doomed, and the only way for the galaxy to be safe would be to eventually transform the Republic into a firmer empire, ensuring peace and a safe society. Sifo Dyas, in this timeline, still ordered the clone army, but he was never killed. He was Palpatine's new apprentice, Darth Titus. As soon as Titus found that Obi-Wan and his apprentice were headed to Kamino, he went into hiding, knowing what would be coming next. With Obi-Wan and his apprentice Ahsoka captured on Geonosis after pursuing Jango Fett, Jedi in the new clone army came to their rescue, and the Clone Wars erupted. Qui Gon Jinn and Jedi Padawan Anakin Skywalker led the charge to rescue their old friend Obi-Wan and his apprentice. Anakin led the fight against Darth Titus and forced him to retreat with the help of other Jedi. Anakin fought with courage and great power for his age, and the Battle of Geonosis went on into the Republic's favor, though it started a chain reaction beyond their control and ultimately a loss. Countless star systems left the Republic to join the Confederation of Independent Systems, with Sifo Dyas emerging from hiding, proclaiming to be their leader. He was just playing the other side of the war. In reality, he was still Darth Titus, apprentice to Darth Sidious. After the Battle of Geonosis, Jedi Padawan Anakin Skywalker was granted to take the Jedi trials and was promoted to Jedi Knight. Qui Gon Jinn was very proud of the young Jedi, once boy found on the desert planet, and would continue to guide Anakin through this time of uncertainty. Anakin in secret had fallen in love with Padme, with his time protecting her, and they got married towards the end of Anakin's assignment to protect her. Similar to the main timeline, the Clone Wars broke at full scale across the galaxy. Many worlds got involved in the conflict, some less enthusiastic about the prospect of war, but they didn't exactly have a choice in the matter. General Obi-Wan Kenobi, Commander Ahsoka Tano, along with the now Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, were among the Republic's top commanders of the Clone Wars. They liberated countless systems from separatist tyranny across worlds such as Ryloth, Megiddo, and Corellia. Jedi Master Qui Gon Jinn, however, was not as enthusiastic about this war, and the Jedi now being used as military commanders. He sat out most of the war, only electing to deal with matters that he decided would save the most amount of lives. His patience with the Republic and the Jedi Order was being questioned as well, and his old master Dooku felt the same way. They were perplexed that their old friend Sifo Dyas had fully embraced the dark side and joined the Separatists. Sifo Dyas even managed to turn Jedi Barriss Offee to the dark side, another Jedi disgruntled with the Jedi Order. And Barriss led many Separatist forces against the Republic, being a great nuisance. In any case, a lot of it didn't make sense to Dooku and Qui-Gon. Something was off about this war. Let's fast forward 3 years. The galaxy's in shambles and the Clone Wars are nearing its end. Chancellor Palpatine has been captured by Barriss Offee in a terrorist attack, and the most prominent and powerful Jedi Knight of the Clone Wars, Anakin Skywalker, is assigned to get the Chancellor back. Qui Gon Jinn decides to join with Anakin, as he felt the Force was calling his involvement. When they breach the main Separatist command ship, Qui-Gon sensed a trap. Chancellor Palpatine is bound to a chair, and when they approach him, the Dark Jedi Barriss Offee confronts them. But she's not alone. Darth Titus emerges as well. 2 epic duels ensue between the dark side users and the Force users. It started as Anakin versus Barriss, but the battle got complicated at times, with Anakin and Qui-Gon having to switch opponents frequently, taking turns against the Dark Lord Titus. Sith lightning could be seen through the windows of the command deck. Qui-Gon Jinn was older now than he was before, and the age was beginning to slow him down. The dark side users continued to wear him down. Anakin noticed that Barriss and Titus were now trying to focus on his old master. After Titus sent a wave of Force lightning through Qui-Gon that sent him unconscious, it was now just Anakin versus Barriss and Titus. Anakin, now seeing his Jedi Master on the floor not moving, kicked it into high gear. And this is where Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker did something bizarre that no Jedi would dare do. As Barriss and Darth Titus approached him, he closed his eyes. The dark side users mocked him at first, but when the strikes from the Jedi now came faster and more precise, Barriss and Titus took him more seriously. Anakin let the living force flow through him, trusting in the force to guide his movements in combat, and used his instincts, not allowing his eyes to deceive him. He was an absolute machine, and even though he was on a 2-to-1 disadvantage, he was pushing Barriss and Titus back, to Darth Titus's dismay. Palpatine in the background watched with great interest and a smile. Eventually, Anakin managed to deal a fatal blow to Darth Titus, killing the Dark Lord in his place. Barriss, however, took the opportunity to retreat to an escape pod, and she escaped. In the aftermath of the battle, Anakin freed the Chancellor, who thanked him and complimented his sportsmanship. And then he checked out Qui Gon. Thankfully, Qui Gon was still breathing, so he put his master on his back and used the last of his Force energy to safely get Qui Gon and the Chancellor off the ship. When returning to Coruscant, Anakin was greeted by many politicians from the Jedi Council. They complimented his work and proclaimed him a hero. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka had just returned from a mission on Corellia, and they exchanged hugs. Anakin, however, was most focused on his wife, Padme. He was happy to see his wife, as was she. That's when Padme shared the news of her pregnancy towards Anakin. Anakin's reaction at first was lackluster, but he eventually smiled and knew he would be able to work something out with his secret relationship and duties to the Jedi. After all, he was the chosen one. After the rescue of the Chancellor, Anakin earned some much-needed time off. Of course, he spent this time with his wife Padme at her apartments, and they slept together. In his sleep, however, Anakin was now having dreams of his wife's death. He knew of dreams he had before of his mother, but dismissed them at first as he was able to save his mother. As the dreams got worse, he could no longer ignore them. He had to make sure his wife was safe. That is, when Anakin had a great decision to make. Anakin visited Qui Gon, who was still recovering in a medical unit from his injuries sustained in the battle versus Darth Titus. Thankfully, Qui Gon was conscious now. He was expected to recover. It was here where Anakin revealed that he was married to Padme Amidala, and that she was pregnant. To Anakin's surprise, Qui Gon didn't react much or seem surprised. It seemed he had already knew. He told Anakin that he already had suspected as much, but was hoping that Anakin would reveal the truth to him soon. Anakin then revealed that he was having Force visions of Padme's death and his concern for her. Qui-Gon stood upright the best he could and put a hand on his chin, thinking deeply on what his apprentice had told him. He then said, "Anakin, I have known you since you were a boy. You won the Boonta Eve Classic pod race and built a human relations droid when you were just 9 years old. You have always been gifted. I don't know why you are having these visions, but you need only meditate on the matter to find the truth behind these visions. And remember, trust in the living Force." Anakin hugged his old master and returned back to his room to the Jedi Temple. He meditated deeply. "I must trust in the Force. It is my guide," Anakin said to himself as he meditated alone. He thought deeply to himself and pondered on why he might be having the visions of Padme's death. The next day, Anakin was in for a shock. The Jedi Council summoned him. The council members had cold faces when he entered the chambers. "Your old master is dead," Mace Windu informed him. "What? How?" Anakin asked. Emotion swelled at him. How could have this happened?
"Assassinated in the night he was," Yoda said. "Terrible it was, yes."
Anakin had many mixed emotions, but remembered Qui-Gon's teachings and to trust in the Force. He kept his emotions at bay until he was out of the chamber, and the tears started erupting. How could Qui-Gon be gone? The Jedi that freed him from his slavery? The Jedi that vouched for him to be trained? The one person who Anakin looked up to like a father that he never had. As Anakin was walking toward the exit of the temple, it was here where a familiar, older face greeted him. Jedi Master Dooku. He hugged Anakin. "I'm sorry, Anakin. Qui-Gon was a great man. Nobody wiser." They spent the rest of the evening together, sharing drinks at the Coruscant bars, talking and reminiscing on the memory of Qui-Gon. Sharing his epic moments, Dooku even shared tales of Qui-Gon's youth as a bolder young apprentice, which even surprised Anakin. They shared many laughs for hours and tears, till eventually the night took a different spin. Anakin eventually shared the fact that he had a relationship with Padme, and the visions that had followed, and the advice Qui-Gon had given him. This is where the fun begins. Anakin, I think I know who is behind the killing of your master, Dooku said with a croaking voice. It was not easy for him to say. I have reason to believe it was the Dark Lord of the Sith. What? How could you know this? Anakin said. Well, I had met with the Dark Lord years ago, when I was even more disillusioned with the Jedi. Anakin's face turned angry. How could you have met the Sith and not told anybody? Dooku was clearly frustrated. I didn't know what to do at the time. There was no good options. I was being patient, as Qui Gon had advised. I know I should have said something sooner, and I should be punished for not revealing this. The least I can do now is to try to make up for this. Hear me out. I believe this Dark Lord, Darth Sidious, is behind your visions as well. Anakin tried to stay calm, following his late master's teaching, trusting in the Force. How could you know this? Why would he be behind them? Because he is in need of a new apprentice. You killed his apprentice, Darth Titus. Who would be more promising than the most powerful Jedi in the Order? But he would need to turn you to the dark side first, by giving visions of your wife dying, and next ordering the assassination of Qui Gon. Anakin thought deeply and said, But who is the Dark Lord of the Sith? Dooku, with a subtle, cheeky smile, replied, Who is close enough in your life to know of your connection to Padme? Who alone saw your talents as a Jedi on full display? Palpatine, Anakin said. It all made sense now. Fury now really started to build in his mind, overwhelming the teachings Qui-Gon had bestowed upon him. He must pay, Anakin said. He can't get away with all of this. He's responsible for the war at hand and millions of lives as well. Agreed, Dooku replied. Let me help you. I must have revenge upon Sidious for killing Qui-Gon. Let me make amends for my failures. Together, Anakin and Dooku confronted Chancellor Palpatine. Anakin and Dooku entered Palpatine's chamber. Ah, Master Dooku and Anakin, Palpatine said. I heard Master Obi-Wan Kenobi and his apprentice have just captured Separatist leader Barriss Offee. The end of the war appears to be near. The Jedi made no reply other than the hum of lightsabers erupting. Both Anakin and Dooku's blue lightsabers were ready for the duel of their lives. Are you threatening me? The now Darth Sidious replied. A Force scream followed by Force speed almost caught Anakin and Dooku off guard, but they stood their ground. A high level of unimaginable skill took place between that of the Dark Lord, the most prominent Jedi of the Clone Wars, and the Master Swordsman in that of Dooku. Force powers were on full display, with Sith lightning of immeasurable scale causing fires in the Chancellor's room. The 2-on-1 advantage was advantageous at first, but the Dark Lord was relentless. He utilized all forms of lightsaber combat to constantly be keeping Anakin and Dooku on their toes. Palpatine laughed when he landed blows on Dooku and Anakin, scathing them with his lightsaber. He was toying with them. Anakin's eyes were blinking between his normal shade and that of Sith Yellow, getting frustrated with his inability to defeat the Sith Lord and his anger behind Palpatine's many wrongdoing. When Anakin was knocked back momentarily, Palpatine decided he had enough playing games and finished off Dooku, dismembering both legs and arms before force throwing him out of the window. You should have listened to me all those years ago, you old fool, as he said to Dooku, throwing him to his death. Anakin, now realizing the situation he was in, dug deep into his thoughts for the few moments he had to recover. He thought back to those last words Qui-Gon had shared to him. Trust in the living Force. Those words, along with the words Qui-Gon had first shared with him all the way back on Tatooine.
Right.
Whoa!
Remember, concentrate on the moment. Feel. Don't think. Use your instincts.
I will.
May the Force be with you.
Anakin, now taking deep breaths, calmed himself down and closed his eyes. Palpatine laughed at him, but Anakin reignited his blue lightsaber and continued the fight, with the injuries of slashes on his torso and all. The duel was crazy. Anakin deepened his connection to the Force, utilizing the 20,000 plus midichlorians in his body to the maximum potential. Palpatine was beginning to lose his grip. The previous gap in power seemed to have been closed. Palpatine was fighting fully serious now, but Anakin continued to press on, having full faith in the Force to guide him. If he was truly the chosen one and meant to bring balance to the Force would guide him to his victory, or he would die here believing in his cause. The battle continued for almost an hour until Palpatine attempted to catch Anakin by surprise as he was getting desperate. Palpatine intended to end the fight with one swift motion. You see, Palpatine kept 2 lightsabers hidden in his office. When a lightsaber lock occurred between Anakin's blue and Palpatine's red saber in the middle of the office, Palpatine attempted to swiftly force pull and ignite the second saber that was hidden behind Anakin, which would have killed any Jedi. Well, Anakin was more than just a Jedi now. And even with his eyes closed, Anakin sensed what Palpatine was about to do. And in the moment the saber came flying towards him, Anakin timed a perfect force jump over the incoming saber, letting it go past him and through the foe, severing Palpatine, Darth Sidious, the Dark Lord of the Sith. Chancellor Palpatine, the Dark Lord of the Sith, was no more. After the battle, Anakin thought he had seen a familiar face through the window in the Coruscant sky. In the aftermath of the duel, Anakin returned to report on the events that had transpired. The Council was in complete shock that Palpatine was indeed the Sith Lord they had been looking for, and of Anakin's ability to defeat him. They were also not pleased that he decided to take matters in his own hand. Jedi Masters Obi-Wan Kenobi and Jedi Padawan Lord Ahsoka Tano returned from their mission, having successfully captured Barriss Offee. With no more major CIS leaders, the war was sure to be over soon. Obi-Wan expressed condolences and sadness at learning of both Qui Gon and Dooku's death. It was here where Anakin informed Obi-Wan that he would be leaving the Jedi Order. With the galaxy in shambles and a pregnant wife to take care of, he decided it was the best decision he could make. He also told Obi-Wan his true feelings about how he felt of the Jedi Order and how it had its problems. A Sith Lord to become Supreme Chancellor of the Galaxy and starting a war killing millions, all under the noses of the inept Jedi Order? It was hard for Anakin to not blame the Jedi Order for all that had happened. But in the end, all he asked for was for Obi-Wan to promote reform within the Jedi Order and to ask the Council to reconsider how they operated the Order. Of course, the Council didn't take much heed to these suggestions, and more of the same continued. With heartfelt goodbyes, Anakin made his leave for Naboo with his pregnant wife Padme. Anakin kept his saber with him, as he figured the Jedi would not bother to come get it from him. Padme gave birth to twins Luke and Leia, who were also Force attuned like their father. Anakin taught them the ways of the Force, and the philosophy of the living Force, as his master before him had taught him. For the most part, Anakin lived a quiet and happy life thereafter, fulfilling his destiny of defeating the Sith and bringing balance to the Force. In his later years, once the kids had grown up, he made a return visit to Tatooine. It was here where he learned his mother had passed away in a peaceful manner, just years prior. Though this saddened Anakin, it didn't let him overwhelm him. Anakin then made it his goal to use his powers to free slaves all across the galaxy. He did this for the better part of his life, and by the time he grew his first gray hair, there were no more slaves left in the Outer Rim, a feat that the Jedi Council never set their sights on, but could have. Anakin spent most of his remaining years on Naboo with Padme, and his now older kids, the young adults Luke and Leia. He helped them find their first lightsaber crystals and helped them build their first sabers, and taught them how to wield them. When he had no more left to train him, he decided it was time for him to leave the life he knew once more. Anakin set out on a simpler goal now in his older age to simply discover new star systems.
Stay still, Nelly. Let me clean this cut.
There's so many. Do they all have a system of planets?
Most of them.
Has anyone been to them all?
Not likely.
I want to be the first one to see them all.
The story of Anakin Skywalker had appeared to be over. One day, when Luke and Leia were practicing sparring with their lightsabers in the plains of Naboo, a starfighter they had never seen before landed nearby. Emerging from the shuttle was that of an adult female Torgruda who looked uneasy and made haste towards the twins and said,
I need your help.
Well, that wraps up this story, guys, or does it? But yeah, this is a really fun one to make. The longest what if I've made so far. I'm going to be making more what ifs. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like. And in the time being, this was my 10th what if, so there's 9 other what ifs in the playlist here. Go check them out and hit that notification bell for our next upload. And remember, trust in the living force.